MASH is one of those rare shows that became a television legend, mixing humor and heartbreak like no other. It pulled viewers in with its sharp wit and powerful moments, creating a world people want to be part of every week. But behind the laughs and emotional scenes, some of the biggest stars suddenly walked away, right when the show was at the peak of its success. Why? What made these actors leave a hit show when most would do anything to stay? At first, it might sound like typical Hollywood drama. Actors wanted more money, creative disagreements, or simply feeling burnout. But when you look closer, the reasons get a lot more complicated. It turns out there were creative frustrations, personal struggles, and conflict behind the scenes that made staying on MASH impossible for some of its stars. Wayne Rogers, who played the quick-witted and charming Trapper John, was one of the first to leave. He walked away after just 3 seasons, even though the show was getting more and more popular. Then there's Larry Linville, the actor behind the hilariously frustrating Major Frank Burns, who decided to quit because his character was stuck in a rut. McLean Stevenson, who played the lovable Henry Blake, also left the show, hoping for bigger things, but ending up frustrated by how things were going. Each actor's reasons were different. Some felt creatively trapped. Others dealt with tense situations on set. Some wanted to explore new opportunities, while others had personal issues they couldn't handle while working on the show. What's interesting is how these departures changed MASH forever. Losing these key characters forced the producers to rethink the story and bring in new faces, which shifted the show's tone and chemistry in ways fans still talk about. But there's more than just what was made public. Over the years, new interviews and insider stories have come out, revealing some of the hidden tensions and challenges that made life on MASH tougher than most viewers ever imagined. So, why did these stars walk away from a show that promised steady success and fame? What was really happening behind the scenes? And how did their sudden exits shape the future of one of TV's most beloved series? Stick around, because the story behind these departures is more surprising than you think, and it's one you probably never heard told like this before. Wayne Rogers wasn't just any actor on MASH. He was the face of one of the show's most beloved characters, Trapper John McIntyre. His quick humor and easy charm made him a fan favorite, and his chemistry with Alan Alda's Hawkeye was electric. But despite all this, Rogers shocked everyone when he left the show after just 3 seasons. It wasn't because of ratings or lack of opportunity. It was deeper, tied to frustration with how the show was evolving. Rogers felt like Trapper John was being pushed into a narrower role than he wanted. Early on, Trapper was sharp, unpredictable, and a bit rebellious, exactly the kind of character Rogers enjoyed playing. But as the show matured, Rogers saw his character losing some of that edge, becoming more of a sidekick than a full partner in the story. He wanted more control over his character's development, but that control wasn't coming. Behind the scenes, Rogers also clashed with producers over creative decisions. He wanted the show to maintain a sharper comedic edge, but the series was shifting more into dramatic territory. This creative tug-of-war left him feeling boxed in and unsure about his place. On top of that, contract negotiations reportedly became tense. Rogers had hoped for a better deal to reflect his contributions, but the studio pushed back hard. His departure wasn't announced with fanfare. Instead, it came as a surprise to both fans and cast members, leaving a void that was hard to fill. But Rogers didn't just disappear after leaving MASH. He went on to have a successful career in film and TV, even becoming a respected financial analyst. Clearly, walking away was a choice about his long-term path, not just frustration in the moment. What makes Rogers' exit especially interesting is how it set a precedent. It showed that even in a hit show, actors were willing to leave if they felt their creative needs weren't being met. That decision sent ripples through the cast and crew, signaling that MASH's behind-the-scenes atmosphere wasn't as harmonious as fans might have thought. But Rogers' story wasn't the whole picture. His exit opened the door for other cast members to reconsider their own roles, and what followed would only deepen the mystery and tension around MASH's most famous departures. Larry Linville's exit from MASH is a story that doesn't get as much spotlight, but is just as revealing about the show's behind-the-scenes struggles. Linville played Major Frank Burns, the bumbling, often ridiculous antagonist who was a perfect foil for the more likable characters. But what seemed like a fun, easy role on the surface became a source of real frustration for Linville as the series went on. Early on, Frank Burns was meant to be the villain of the camp, rigid, clueless, and occasionally dangerous, but also a bit of comic relief. Linville enjoyed playing the character's flaws and quirks, but as the seasons passed, Frank became more and more one-note. Instead of evolving, the role started to feel stuck in a rut, defined mainly by his incompetence and constant failures. For Linville, that lack of depth became a serious problem. He wanted to explore more complex sides of Frank Burns, or even branch out into different roles or storylines, but the show's writers seemed content keeping him in the same box. The character's jokes and scenes grew repetitive, and Linville worried he was becoming typecast. Adding to that, the on-set atmosphere around Frank Burns was reportedly tense. Linville himself admitted in later interviews that he didn't always get along with some cast members. Unlike the warm camaraderie that viewers saw on screen, the real dynamics could be cold and uncomfortable. That tension made it harder for him to feel connected or motivated. When it came time to renew his contract after 5 seasons, Linville decided enough was enough. He felt creatively unfulfilled and ready to move on. Walking away from such a popular show was a risk, but Linville wanted to find roles that challenged him more and allowed for growth. What's especially interesting about Linville's departure is how it highlighted a larger issue on MASH, balancing the mix of comedy and drama while keeping characters fresh. Frank Burns' character had become a symbol of what happens when that balance isn't maintained: stale, flat, and no longer engaging. His exit also cleared the way for new characters to enter the show's world, ones who brought fresh energy and complexity. But for fans of Frank Burns, Linville's departure marked the end of a unique and often misunderstood presence on the show. And just as Linville walked away, the cast was about to face another major shakeup, with a star who'd leave under very different, but equally complicated circumstances. McLean Stevenson's exit from MASH is one of the most talked about departures, filled with layers of frustration, ambition, and unexpected tension. He played Colonel Henry Blake, the easygoing, lovable commanding officer who was a fan favorite. His character brought human, sometimes goofy warmth to the chaos of the 4077th. So when Stevenson decided to leave after season 3, it sent shockwaves to the cast and audience alike. Stevenson's reasons for leaving went beyond creative differences or contract issues. Unlike Rogers and Linville, he was eager for bigger opportunities. He dreamed of starring in his own show, moving out of the ensemble and into a lead role where he could truly shine. However, as MASH grew in popularity, he felt stuck in a supporting position that wasn't evolving the way he wanted. But there was more beneath the surface. Behind the scenes, Stevenson reportedly clashed with producers and even some cast members. Tensions flared over the direction of his character and the show itself. While Henry Blake was beloved, Stevenson wanted his role to have more depth and impact, but the show's focus was shifting toward other characters, especially Hawkeye and Trapper John. In interviews years later, Stevenson spoke candidly about feeling undervalued and frustrated by the limitations placed on him. He wanted to expand his creative horizons, but felt boxed in by the show's structure and the demands of ensemble storytelling. His exit wasn't just a personal career move. It had dramatic consequences for the show's storylines. The decision to kill off Henry Blake was groundbreaking. It shocked viewers who had grown attached to the character's easy charm. That bold move reshaped the tone of MASH, signaling that no one was safe and deepening the show's emotional complexity. Stevenson's departure exposed a fragile balance between creative ambition and collaborative storytelling. While he pursued his dreams, MASH's producers faced the challenge of keeping the show compelling without one of its warmest anchors. Looking back, Stevenson's story shows the tension actors can face on long-running shows, the pull between loyalty to a hit series and the desire to grow beyond it. His decision was risky, but it paved the way for new characters and storylines that kept MASH evolving and surprising its audience. What followed his departure set the stage for even more dramatic exits and behind-the-scenes turmoil, revealing a world far messier than the one fans saw on screen. Behind the laughs and drama of MASH, contract battles and creative disagreements simmered beneath the surface, quietly shaping who stayed and who walked away. It's easy to think that the show's success meant everyone was happy, but the reality was far messier. For several cast members, the struggle for creative control and fair contracts became a breaking point. Actors like Wayne Rogers and Larry Linville felt they were stuck in roles that no longer challenged them. But it wasn't just about the characters. Negotiating contracts became a battleground where personal ambitions clashed with the studio's vision and budget constraints. The producers wanted to keep costs down and maintain control, while actors wanted more say in their characters and bigger paychecks to match the show's booming success. These battles weren't just about money. They were about respect and creative freedom. Rogers wanted Trapper John to be more than a sidekick. Linville wanted Frank Burns to evolve beyond a one-dimensional caricature. And when their voices weren't heard, frustration built. The tension sometimes spilled over on set. Creative disagreements meant that some actors felt sidelined or ignored in key storylines, leading to resentment. The show was balancing between comedy and drama, and not everyone agreed on how that balance should look. Some wanted to keep the humor sharp and biting. Others leaned toward deeper, more emotional storytelling. For the producers, this was a delicate dance. They had to keep the show's tone consistent, and its cast happy enough to stick around. But when big personalities and creative visions collide, compromises are hard to come by. Contract disputes played a major role in these dynamics. Some stars received offers they felt didn't match their contributions, sparking tough negotiations. Others simply chose to walk away rather than settle for less. These departures, in turn, created opportunities for new talent, but also brought challenges in maintaining the show's original spirit. What's fascinating is how these behind-the-scenes conflicts are often invisible to viewers. Fans saw seamless episodes full of humor and heart, unaware of the struggles off-camera that threatened the show's stability. In the end, contract battles and creative differences didn't just impact individual actors, they shaped MASH's evolution. The show's ability to adapt and bring in fresh faces while staying true to its core is part of what made it classic. But those moments of tension remind us that even the most beloved series has its breaking points. And just when it seemed like the worst was behind them, more on-set conflicts were about to surface, pushing some stars to reconsider their place in the MASH family. The world behind the scenes on MASH wasn't always the friendly, collaborative place viewers might imagine. Despite the on-screen camaraderie, the set was often charged with tension, rivalries, and clashing personalities. These conflicts quietly fueled some of the show's most dramatic exits. Many cast members had strong opinions about how the show should be run and what direction the characters should take. But when those visions didn't line up, sparks flew. It wasn't just disagreements over scripts or roles. There were personal clashes that made working together difficult. For instance, there were rumors that Larry Linville's Major Frank Burns rubbed some co-stars the wrong way, not because Linville himself was difficult, but because his character was so grating. It bled into real-life interactions. Some accounts suggest that on-set dynamics suffered as a result, making Linville's environment uncomfortable and ultimately influencing his decision to leave. Wayne Rogers' departure also had roots in this tension. He was vocal about his frustrations with the creative direction of MASH, and that didn't always sit well with the producers or fellow actors who wanted to keep the show's tone steady. His candidness, while refreshing, created a divide. Even McLean Stevenson faced challenges fitting in. His hopes for bigger roles and more creative input sometimes clashed with the ensemble's established rhythm. As a result, Stevenson felt increasingly isolated, fueling his decision to take a risk and leave for a leading role elsewhere. The producers themselves weren't immune to the pressure. Balancing the egos and ambitions of a large, talented cast while maintaining the show's quality was no easy feat. They had to manage disputes quietly to avoid disrupting filming schedules. But the strain showed over time. The on-set conflicts weren't just about personality clashes. They were tied to the very nature of MASH, a show that pushed boundaries by mixing comedy with serious topics. Not everyone agreed on how far to push that line. Some wanted to keep it light. Others wanted more weight and realism. That tension created a charged atmosphere that wasn't always comfortable. These behind-the-scenes battles shaped not only who stayed or left, but also the tone of the show itself. They forced the writers and producers to rethink character arcs and storylines, sometimes abruptly. Fans might have noticed sudden shifts in dynamics or new faces popping up, signs of the unrest simmering behind the camera. What's striking is how these tensions, while challenging, didn't break the show. Instead, they pushed MASH to evolve and adapt, making it stronger in some ways. But for the stars caught in the middle, it was a difficult environment, one that made walking away seem like the best option. And just when you think the drama behind the scenes had settled, the story takes another twist with how these departures reshaped MASH in ways nobody expected. The departures of key cast members shook MASH in ways that went far beyond just swapping actors. Losing Wayne Rogers, Larry Linville, and McLean Stevenson forced the show's creators to rethink its direction, tone, and character dynamics, and that reshaping ultimately changed the show forever. Wayne Rogers' exit meant losing Trapper John's quick wit and rebellious spirit. The producers brought in Mike Farrell as B.J. Honeycutt, a character who was similar in role but different in personality, more grounded, more thoughtful. This shift subtly changed the humor and heart of the show. BJ's quieter style made the interactions with Hawkeye less about wild antics and more about friendship and trust. Larry Linville's departure left a hole where Major Frank Burns' chaotic presence had been. Instead of trying to replace that same character, the show introduced Charles Emerson Winchester III, played by David Ogden Stiers. Winchester was a much more sophisticated, snobbish antagonist. This gave the show a fresh edge, less slapstick frustration, more sharp wit and subtle tension. It also reflected the show's move toward more complex storytelling, blending humor with deeper drama. McLean Stevenson's exit was the most dramatic and impactful. Killing off Henry Blake was groundbreaking. It shocked viewers and sent a powerful message that MASH wasn't afraid to get real or dark. That moment marked a turning point, pushing the series into darker, more emotional territory while still keeping its humor intact. It set the tone for future episodes that didn't shy away from the cost of war or the vulnerability of its characters. These cast changes also shifted the group dynamic. The new characters weren't just replacements. They brought different energy, allowing writers to explore new relationships and storylines. The balance between comedy and drama became more delicate and more effective, helping MASH stay fresh and relevant over its long run. But these changes came with risks. Fans were deeply attached to the original characters, and any change threatened backlash. The show had to win viewers over again, proving that it wasn't just about the cast, but about the strength of the stories and themes. Interestingly, these departures also highlighted the resilience of the show's core concept, the ability to tell human stories against the backdrop of war, mixing laughter and pain. By adapting to the loss of key players, MASH proved it was more than just a collection of characters. It was a powerful storytelling machine that could survive change. In the end, these exits didn't weaken MASH. They helped it evolve into the groundbreaking series it became. And the story Why These Stars Walk Away added a fascinating layer to the show's legacy, a reminder that behind every great show are real people with real struggles, ambitions, and sometimes tough choices. What happened next on MASH? The show kept pushing boundaries and breaking new ground, but the shadow of these departures would always linger in its story. Looking back, the story Why These Stars Walked Away from MASH reveals a side of the show that most viewers never saw. It wasn't just about fame or success. It was about creative freedom, personal struggles, and the complex realities of working on a groundbreaking series. Each departure, whether Wayne Rogers, Larry Linville, or McLean Stevenson, tells a story of ambition, frustration, and tough decisions. These exits didn't just disrupt the show. They forced it to grow and change. New characters, fresh storylines, and a shift in tone helped MASH stay powerful and relevant. The show became more than just a comedy or a drama. It became a mirror reflecting the complexities of life, friendship, and war. The courage to shake up the cast showed a willingness to take risks that few shows dare to make. But the real takeaway is about the people behind the characters. The actors on MASH weren't just playing roles. They were navigating their own careers, emotions, and creative dreams. Walking away was often painful but necessary for their own growth. Their choices remind us that even in the world of entertainment, real life often shapes the story behind the story. If you've ever wondered what really happened behind the scenes of your favorite shows, this is a perfect example. The tensions, the triumphs, and the tough calls all come together to make the final product even more meaningful. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive into MASH's untold stories. If you found this video eye-opening, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that peel back the curtain on your favorite shows and stars. And let me know in the comments, are there other shows or stars you want to explore next? I'm always up for uncovering the hidden tales behind the hits. Remember, every show has a story behind the scenes, and sometimes those stories are the most fascinating of all.